Louis Gossett Jr. is here with me live in Studio Q. Hello.
How you doing? Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm totally impressed with your show.
What? Wow.
And your choice of music and everything else. It was just wonderful.
Got a good team here.
You sure do.
I'm impressed by your career.
Oh, thank you.
It's been long and successful.
I started as a teenager.
Let's talk first about the Book of Negroes. And let me put it in this context. There have been many attempts at telling the stories of slavery on screen. Acclaimed 12 Years a Slave,
Right.
Tarantino's Django Unchained. When it comes to this retelling in the Book of Negroes, what sets this one apart?
What sets this one apart is the background of slavery and the diaspora and all that. But the story's about this woman and her triumphant life. Through all odds, she got back home. And she's the one that's telling the story, so it's successful. It's really a story about a woman and her life.
It's a story that we don't hear very often.
Absolutely.
So it's a fresh take. You say it's a fresh take on an old theme.
Yeah, that's just the background. Slavery and all that stuff is in the background. The Book of Negroes was a book that the British collected so that after the war they would free all the ones who fought for the British. But ironically, they lost the war. But that's just the name of that. It's very funny. We talked about it last night, that the word Negro in America, in the United States, is something that most African Americans reject these days. We're African Americans, So it's kind of a contempt prior to seeking out the truth. So I turned the book down until they said they wanted me to do the part. So I opened the book, and I was exposed to this heavenly world that Lawrence Hill wrote. He's a brilliant writer. And I got more and more involved. So it's called contempt prior to an investigation. I'll never do that again for people, places, or things.
I want to ask about being typecast and stuff, but I first want to go back to your upbringing and the time in which you were born. You're born in Brooklyn in the 30s. It's not an easy time to be a black man in America, especially in the South those days, but nowhere. I mean, Jim Crow segregation laws were in full effect. The NAACP was in the midst of a massive anti-lynching campaign. Here you are in Brooklyn growing up at this time, Louis, through the 30s and 40s. What are your memories of that time in terms of racism? I mean, did you have direct experiences of racism?
It didn't matter what religion and what color, because everybody was poor. And we took very good care of one another. If we wanted to play stickball, which is what we played, it was a sort-off broomstick handle and a tennis ball. And third base was the Chevrolet on the left. And the women, the girls, they had rope and chalk. And everybody was in seventh heaven. So if my parents didn't get home in time, in my neighborhood, I had a choice. So the guy next door, well, I could have menudo. Or I could go down the way and get some corned beef and cabbage. Or some pasta. Depends on who was home.
Right.
And we grew up like that. And the teachers lived in the neighborhood, so did the doctor and the dentist, and we were a solid community. So that's how I was raised. First generation North. My parents were very worried because they were last generation South. And what you were talking about racism and lynchings, they witnessed. I had a great-grandmother who, according to the Bible, her birth was not recorded in the Bible. When she passed away, she had to be approximately 110. So I have a combination of both. I read about what was happening in the South. I did meet Dr. Martin Luther King, but I was not touched by any kind of racism until I was an established actor in California in 1966.
That was your first taste of
First real taste of it.
What happened?
I showed up as the star of the first movie of the week at Universal, and I was in the Beverly Hills Hotel, and they told me I had a rental car waiting for me. And I went to 20 minutes down the road to get the rental car, and it was one of those Ford Fairlane Galaxy 500s, convertible, egg cream white, red interior, and it turned on some Sam Cooke music, and that 20-minute ride from that place to the hotel took 4.5 hours. I met every policeman on the block. I didn't know what they were talking about. And then it went from there.
It went on.
It went on, yeah. But they were not prepared. They were not like New York. It wasn't like the way I was raised. So my life had to be prepared on a daily basis to be able to deal with the differences And it was a tough one, but here I sit, telling you the story.
So this is 66. You get you work for years in theater. You got your first film role in 61, The Raisin in the Sun, starring Sidney Poitier. In 61, so 5 years before you faced directly your first experience of racism. As a black actor, and I'm hesitant to describe you as a black actor because you're an actor.
I'm an actor now.
Okay. Yeah. But how difficult was it to land good roles back then?
Well, it was a specialty project. So the thing, because I was a new kid and I won all the awards, all of the specialty products are black projects. So I did A Raisin in the Sun, of course, and so we went out there early to do the film, but we were in the motels. We weren't even thought about going to any halfway decent hotels. So that was an isolated incident. So I didn't know anything about racism. But when I came out to be the star of a movie with Melvin Douglas and Ann Baxter and those big people, it just didn't fit. It was Rod Steiger and Heat of the Night. They were outraged. They had no idea. That evening, I was wound up walking and looking at the movie stars' homes, and they handcuffed me to a tree for 3 hours. So I was ready to come home.
I bet.
Yeah, but my agent said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I'm going to go to work." He says, "That's what I expected you to do." Because they are other descendants, other people from the South, when they had the Oklahoma drought and the weapons plants, they were their descendants, and they were the blue-collar workers. They had no concept of anybody, my color, being a star, unless we're an athlete or a dealer. But now it's a different ballgame.
Yes, somewhat of a different ballgame.
Somewhat of a different one.
So that's 61. And then you go on to star in An Officer and a Gentleman.
Yes.
And you earn an actor for Best Supporting Actor for that role. You make history. You're the first African-American to win that award. I think the third a black person to get, to ever win.
Yeah, Hattie, Sidney, and myself.
Yeah, an Oscar. What's it? The third. I mean, you're building legacy here. What's that moment mean to you?
Oh, it doesn't. There was no room in the mind to conceive. I was thinking before they said my name, and I almost didn't really hear my name. That in front of me on the left was the great James Mason. It was his last movie. He was not going to make it. On the right was Robert Preston in the same condition. My friend Charles Durning was over there on the left, and then John Lithgow. I said, "Well, top 5. That's pretty cool stuff, top 5. I was here with my son, who's going to come up with me if I won, and my agent." So for some reason, I get hit in the ribs. He says, "They said your name." I said, "No." They said, "Get up there." So I went up, and they did say my name. I didn't have that. I didn't have a concept, and they allowed me to hug and kiss Susan Sarandon, and then I shook hands with Christopher Reeve, Superman. Wow! I looked around, and they were applauding. I was just it's Alice in Wonderland kind of thing, So I thanked the other 4 guys. I thanked my grandmama and my friend, and left. Yeah.
And in that moment, or I guess better put, I mean, have you reflected on that moment as a symbol of moving forward, of getting recognition of what black actors and just actors in general could achieve?
Well, the recognition amongst my peers, my black peers, was already there. We were all having like a family. Getting recognition globally puts something in your throat. It makes your throat choke a little bit. And it's an overwhelming thing to see everybody shaking your hand and taking pictures. The reality, it took about a year for me to get a proper job or get proper salaries, like maybe my buddy Paul Newman would get, or another friend, Marlon Brando, or the late James Dean, or those guys I grew up with. They got theirs quick. So I guess I might have had a little resentment with that because...
Why do you think you didn't get them quick?
Nobody's ready for me to have won that Oscar. It just... the way it happened...
Ready for you or ready for a black man?
Ready for a black man to win an Oscar, that way. So there was no projects properly, But what I think about right now is it's God's time. It's not my time or your time. God, that's Alex Haley's mom said the same thing. God may not be there when you want him, but he's always there on time.
We're talking about race relations and racism, not only because the Book of Negroes is all about that, really. as well as you say, the story of a strong woman. But you have this foundation. It's called Racism.
Right.
Devoted to eliminating racism.
Yeah. The mentality of it, yes.
Why do you want to do that?
Well, there's a certain thing, and I'm going back to our roots of my family. Maybe you can identify. With each age, there's certain responsibilities that we must do. When you're maybe, if we're back in the primitive area, maybe by 3 years old, you had to gather some eggs or milk a goat or something, and everybody benefited. Then later on, you'd have to maybe take care of the animals, animal husbandry or whatever you had to do, and then later on, you maybe got married, became a father, and there's a responsibility with that, and then later on, you became an elder, and there's responsibility with that. You're an expert of some sort, all the way up until right now, I have to give it away. From what I've learned, I have to hand to the next generation. And as a result of my life and all the stuff, I want to make the next generation better. It seems like a natural thing for us all to do at certain ages. So I can't tell anybody to do it unless I do it myself. And I can't teach any young people what to do unless I am that way myself. So there's a little charge that I have to have personally. So I tell them, first of all, they have to have respect for themselves. They have to respect for the opposite sex. They have to dress properly and have hygiene, some knowledge of their culture and somebody else's culture, so they're sensitive to one another. They have a dress code of physical fitness, a spirituality, a tunnel vision as far as conflict resolution is concerned, and certain things that we used to learn in the home. And it's not what you get, it's what you give. That's when you grow.
You know, here we are talking about race and racism. It's a difficult conversation.
Not as difficult to me.
Okay.
It's a clear choice.
All right.
And we've been beclouded.
Okay. It is difficult for some people. In last year's program, we spoke to Piya Chattopadhyay, a senior editor at the Huffington Post, who wrote this article. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called "Hollywood's Race Problem is Worse Than You Think." And his point in this article is that black actors are almost always rewarded for roles that couldn't be given to white actors. So historical dramas like 12 Years a Slave, Ray, Jamie Foxx and Ray, Forrest Whitaker for playing Idi Amin in The Last King of Scotland. Do you agree with that?
Well, it's our culture here, our America. We're like the teenagers. We're very powerful teenagers. Our culture is young. We're going through growing pains. And some of them are serious. People die because we're young, because we go with the automatic assumption of superiority. We're number one. In actual fact, we're number 21 in education. And we need to kind of calm down a little bit and be all ears and all eyes and learn from the older cultures. That conflict resolution I talk about with the young prepares, hopefully, a young person not to go to conflict and violence when there's a disagreement. So that maybe we can make better relations with people who are not like us if we start at a young age and know that we really desperately need one another. So those things about Jamie Foxx, Queen Latifah and all those particular people play certain parts. It's their entree to the major business. That's because the people calling the shots are not of our color. That is changing.
You see it changing.
I'm here on behalf of BET and CBC and Viacom with a myriad of a variety of races of producers and directors, including the crew, which is totally universal. Things are changing, whether you can see it or not. It's changing quite rapidly.
And yet we see, when it comes to depictions of slavery on screen, and the Book of Negroes hasn't played out yet, but I know you've taped it, but it hasn't rolled out yet. Some films have been accused of perpetuating kind of torture porn when it comes to movies about slavery. Mm-hmm.
Well, I've seen that. It's sensational. But part of it is real. And everything is on the internet now. We know everything. We know about the abuse, people who abuse one another. We know about the slavery, the white slavery, or the baby abusing. We know about it and all. We're learning how to grow up. Some of it is attrition. There's a lot of people who may not make it because of the truth is out. There's no place to hide anymore. I think it's all growth, very healthy. God is in charge. You can call him Allah. It doesn't matter. But as long as we go in the right direction, I think we're going to be all right. So my responsibility as an elder, for what it's worth, is to teach the people of the next generation what I think is more important. The salvation of the planet is much more important than a bomb.
You're almost 80.
Yeah.
And on IMDb, it says you've got something like 15 productions in various states of completion. You're busy. You're acting, you're producing, you're directing, you have this foundation. Are you going to slow down?
Oh, if I slow down, I'd leave the planet. You retire from sports, maybe, but you don't retire from this. This is life. It's wonderful to be able to be walking into a room, people know who you are, especially the young. It's a very nice existence. I do take enough time off. I do hide from time to time. I have to pick the time to go on an island where there are no television sets.
Take your phone with you?
No, I leave the phone away. I scuba dive a little bit. I haven't done that in a while. But when I think I need that, I do disappear. But it's a very nice existence to keep the balance. Because if you slow down, then your mind says, "Oh, we're slowing down now, are we?" Okay. I don't want to let that happen.
Okay. Don't slow down. But as you reflect on your long career,
Yeah.
What's Louis Gossett's message? I mean, what do you want your legacy to be? I mean, it's not totally in your control, but what do you see that as?
Well, I hope I didn't hurt anybody. Didn't leave any negative damage on society. Hopefully, I'll be considered as something positive and to help change people's lives for the better.
That's simple.
It's simple, yeah.
It's lovely to meet you. You've got
Wow,
a nice
thank
energy.
you.
You're really great. Thank you.
It takes all my life to do it, every day.
Thanks, Louis.
It's a pleasure.